What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Dan, aka aDrive. But guys, our team builder here for week 2 of APA. The St. Louis Rampardos are taking on the New York Cosmogs and Coach Phantom Base in an epic matchup here of two teams that are undefeated so far in this early season. If you missed last week's match, we actually took on a pretty tough team, one of the better teams last season, a playoff contender, and we were able to pick up a nice W, nice controlling 4-0 win over the Cloister. But you know, that was a really awesome match, and I was pretty happy with how we played, kind of starting off a new season with a new team and all that good stuff. But here we've got our work cut out for us with a brand new matchup against some Pokemon that are pretty difficult for our team to handle. I had to make some tough choices in team prep this week and make some iffy decisions, and I'm hoping those actually end up paying out as opposed to not. I think he's gonna have a little bit of a headache team building as well, so we've got some mutual issues there. But let's talk about his team, kind of what I think he's gonna bring, and so on and so forth. So first thing, he's got Blacephalon, obviously one of the new Pokemon, Ultra Beast, Beast Boost, could be Choice Scarf, could be you know, just Z Crystal as well. As Z Crystal users are Blacephalon and Lucario, but Blacephalon could be a Z user. You know, the thing with Blacephalon is it's really weird against my team. It doesn't do anything to Houndoom really. It has a hard time against Como because Como O can take the fire moves and can run. You know, I think it's bulletproof to stop Shadow Ball, but he can run Psychic in that regard and run like Psyche MZ, so he's got some options there. But otherwise, he does lack some coverage options, I think, for my team. So I feel like it's 50-50 whether he brings Blacephalon or not. I obviously prepared for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't bring it. He actually didn't bring it last week, and I feel like this week he may not bring it again. Tapu Fini, I think he's definitely bringing. This thing is a monster. Getting it in the second round, I think, was very valuable for him. It could easily be, in my opinion, like a top 5 pick. Fairy Water Stab is just so good, and its bulk is incredible. But you'll notice that that's one of his only hazard removers on his team, that and Aerodactyl, which isn't really that likely. So Tapu Fini, I'm going to try to take advantage of the fact that he may not have the best hazard removal, and his only option really is to defog with Tapu Fini. Mamoswine, of course, the ground ice type Pokemon, which has just incredibly threatening dual stab. Very scary Pokemon, of course. You know, I think there's a good chance he brings it. It's just such a huge offensive threat, and it does have priority, which I think is pretty useful against my team. And then he's got Bronzong Umbreon Core, which I actually kind of formulated in P4G. A lot of you guys might remember that that core that I brought, and it was so good. Umbreon and Bronzong really complement each other pretty well, especially for kind of lower tier defensive Pokemon that just have incredible bulk. Specifically that Umbreon, which is really an issue for my team to break through. I have some options on how to knock it out, but if he has like Wish and Protect and stuff and Foul Play, it can be really difficult for me to knock him out. So we'll have to make some really good plays there around that thing and try to weaken it down and wear it down. But if he brings like a super specially defensive set, it might be kind of difficult for me to knock it out. I'm not quite sure what route he would go, but I definitely think he's going to bring Umbreon, and I think Bronzong is also very likely. He's got Scolipede, of course, which can pass stats like speed and stuff like that. It also can set hazards. I don't really think he would hazard stack me, simply because I have ways to kind of stop that. I have like Toxic Spikes to turn and stuff, and truthfully, Scolipede it's hit or miss this game. Like it can't really touch Celesteela, which is one thing, but and it also gets kind of wrecked by a Cell Rock priority, so he's got some tough decisions to make there, I think, with the Scolipede. He's also got a Lucario, which is the other Z Crystal user. I think Lucario is a very possible bring. Fighting and Steel type Stab, really scary. He can run a lot of different coverage options there. He can run a Setup Sweeper, which is pretty scary as well. So we have to be careful there, and the priority again is the big thing. Bullet Punch and Extreme Speed and things like that could really be difficult for my team to deal with. He's got the Ampharos, Mega Ampharos. Very scary, man. Mold Breaker Mega Ampharos does go through our Disguise ability, which is something to make note of with Mimikyu. It hits really, really hard, and it's a very bulky Electric type, Dragon type, so it's got a really good typing, only having just a handful of weaknesses, making it pretty difficult to take down. It doesn't have recovery though, so you can kind of wear it down with things like Stealth Rocks and stuff like that, but Ampharos is really, really scary for this team, and it's just raw power, dude. It hits so hard. It's got an incredible special attack stat. Luckily, it doesn't get like Draco or anything like that, but Dragon Pulse and Volt Switch, it can usually Volt Switch around pretty effectively. He's got a Go-Goat, which is not really anything that I'm too concerned about generally. Go-Goat's not that great. You know, he could try to bring it with like Sap Sipper or something, but really doesn't make a lot of sense against my team, so I'm not anticipating Go-Goat under any circumstances in this matchup. Aerodactyl is a very fast flying and rock type Pokemon, obviously one of his Stealth Rockers, one of his hazard removers, which I don't expect it to be that, but it could be a bring. I could see him potentially trying to bring Aero, but if he's like really concerned about like Como O and wants to bring like Aerial Ace or something, I just don't know if Aerodactyl makes a lot of sense this week. And then Zangoose, surprisingly, Zangoose is actually really good now. It did get Belly Drum, So its access to belly drum now makes it a lot more effective. It also gets priority, and it can be like Toxicor boosted and stuff. So you got to be kind of careful with Zangoose there. But overall, I'm expecting Tabu Fini. I'm expecting Bronzong, Umbreon. So those three for sure. I think Ampharos makes a lot of sense. I think Lucario makes a lot of sense. And then I think we're going to see Mamoswine. I actually feel like he's going to leave out Blacephalon. I kind of want him to bring it because I just don't think it's very good against my team. And then watch me get wrecked by it. But nevertheless, let's talk about what we're bringing, why we're bringing it, and so on and so forth. First thing we're bringing is going to be our Lycanroc. Remus makes its appearance. Drill Run, Excel Rock, Thunder Fang, and Crunch. Jolly Tough Claw's Life Orb, basically max attack, enough speed to outspeed things like Blacephalon. Excel Rock just destroys a lot of his team. Aerodactyl, Scolipede, Blacephalon all get destroyed by that thing. Thunder Fang is there for Tabu Fini. Crunch is there for Bronzong, of course. I don't have Stone Edge. I decided to go with Drill Run. I actually had Stone Edge, and I just changed it before the team prep. I feel like Drill Run is actually more important for me. It allows me to hit Lucario on the switch in, which otherwise is a relatively reliable switch in, and it also allows me to hit the Ampharos and two-shot that thing. So I felt like Drill Run is more important than Stone Edge, because the situations where I'd pick Stone Edge, I'd likely just pick a Cell Rock anyway. If that makes sense, right? Like, with Stealth Rocks up, I one-shot Scolipede, Aerodactyl, and Blacephalon with a Cell Rock anyway. So I just felt like Drill Run was a little bit better. Makes it a little bit weaker to things like Mamoswine, but it helps us out against things like Lucario, which I think are bigger threats, and truthfully, Lucario is a pretty big threat in general. So we've also got our Mega Houndoom here. Mega Houndoom coming back for another week. That last week put in the work with the Sun support, of course. This week we're bringing a timid, max speed, pretty much, max special attack set with just the tiniest bit of attack. Pursuit, Sludge Bomb, Dark Pulse, Flamethrower. Pursuit is there for Blacephalon. This is a very good switch into Blacephalon. The only thing he can really do is run either Hidden Power or Smackdown. But we resist the Shadow Ball, we're immune to the Fire move on the switch in, and we're immune to the Psychic move on the switch in, so we're really, really good at countering Blacephalon, and we one-shot it with Pursuit, even with the timid nature, so I really like that. Otherwise, Sludge Bomb for Finny, and then, you know, the other stuff is pretty standard, Dark Pulse, Flamethrower. You know, we are nice because we can take the stab, Steel-type stab from Lucario, and I think Lucario is really in a tough situation this week. It kind of has to run Steel-type stab priority in my opinion because of Mimikyu, more so than running Fighting-type stab, which would be better for Lycanroc. So, I'm sorry, which would be better for Houndoom. So I feel like he's gonna run Bullet Punch if he runs like priority. I don't know if he's gonna have the move slots to run everything. Like he'll probably try to run a setup set. So that's something to make note of there. But I think Houndoom still can be pretty good. I mean, it helps against Bronzong, of course, and potentially getting a poison on something like Umbreon could be really good with Sludge Bomb because I think it's gonna be really difficult to take down. The next Pokemon is gonna be Reptar here, or Nidoking. I love running Timid, Sheer Force, Life Orb Nidoking. Life Orb Nidoking is one of the best breakers. It's so good. It can't break Bronzong, or I'm sorry, it can't break Umbreon this week, which is annoying, but it's really powerful nevertheless. He doesn't really have the best switch-ins to it. Sludge Wave is helping for Finny, and Earth Power for Lucario, and Ampharos, of course. Flamethrower there to help against Bronzong and other things like that. He just doesn't have the best switch-ins to this thing, so, and really Sludge Wave is really important for me to take on Tapu Fini, which is just a problem in general, but this thing can really wreck his team, especially if I make some good predictions. Getting up Stealth Rocks isn't the biggest priority in this match, but that chip damage certainly helps, so that's something to kind of make note of. But generally, this thing is really going to be about trying to just break through things like Bronzong and stuff. And I think we can do that. I think we can. The fourth Pokemon we're bringing is our Celesteela here. Pretty much the same Celesteela as last week, or a very similar set, just like a specially defensive, like mixed defensive set with Heavy Slam, Earthquake, Fire Blast, Leech Seed with leftovers, just for reliable recovery. This thing is a great switch into a lot of his defensive Pokemon. It's one of my main ways to deal with things like Lucario and Mamoswine and Scolipede. Its typing is so good for those Pokemon. Leech Seed is really nice to wear things down like Bronzong and Umbreon, which can otherwise be a problem. Fire Blast for Umbreon, of course, or for Bronzong, of course. And you know, obviously, Mega Ampharos is a problem. If I can get rid of Mega Ampharos and he doesn't bring Blacephalon, I don't know how he beats Celesteela, is really, I think, what the game comes down to. So my objective is really going to be throwing my resources. Again, I don't have a feeling he's not bringing Blacephalon. So I think one of my main objectives, I just need to get rid of Ampharos. Because again, once Ampharos is gone, I just don't know if he can beat Celesteela. So that's going to be like a really, really key way to win this game is just kind of play around and really go all out against that Ampharos and ensure that it gets weakened so he can't beat me with that thing. Because that thing is really scary. It actually is. And we've got our Scubabug here. This is where some of the tough decisions were made. Like things like Como-O, I think, had a good matchup. Like Como-O actually was pretty scary against this team, especially helping against things like Umbreon and stuff with that fighting type stab. But I really wanted the Scubabug this week. I felt like I can do some pretty cool, unique tech stuff with Scubabug and actually be pretty effective. So I decided to bring Sticky Web. I mentioned that he only has the really one reliable hazard remover in defogging Tapu Fini. So I feel like Sticky Web is really reliable there. Helps against things like Mamoswine and Blacephalon if he brings it Scarfed, or even Lucario. Lowering that thing's speed stat to help out the rest of the team, like Nidoking, is really useful. It also helps against things like fast Ampharos and stuff. But Liquidation there hits really hard. I've got leftovers because I think this thing can switch into things like Bronzong and Umbreon really well. It also switches into Mamoswine that doesn't carry Stone Edge, which is also super sweet. It also takes on hits from Blacephalon really well. It takes the dual stab from Lucario, which I really like as well. So he's got some move slot syndrome there. And Mirror Coat is there for Tapu Fini. So Nature's Madness is a pretty common move on Tapu Fini. It does 50% of your health that exists. And Mirror Coat actually does bounce that back, so that's really cool. And it's also really cool that if he like tries to taunt me, I can Infestation it and trap it. So this thing is like, I really want to use this thing to trap things like Umbreon, trap things like Bronzong, trap things like Tapu Fini with Infestation, keep them from switching out, and then whittle them down. Obviously Liquidation has that chance to drop defense as well, which is pretty crucial, especially when it comes to taking on Umbreon. So a couple things to note there. Sticky Webs is just part of the strategy here. I really just liked how Araquanid looked from a type perspective. Bug and Water is just a really good typing, especially when you resist fire as well with your ability. So just having that typing, it just like, if you look across his team, he has a really hard time hitting this thing super effectively, or even that hard in general. So I really just, I just couldn't pass up on bringing it. And again, Como-O had so much viability in this week. I just couldn't justify it when I had the other stuff. And last but not least is PeekaBoo. PeekaBoo, of course. Excuse me. Bringing that Jolly Disguise Mimikyu MZ again. Mimikyu MZ for the second time, but I need that nuke for Ampharos. I need that nuke for Umbreon. It also helps a couple other things like the Lucario. Bulk Up instead of Swords Dance though. I think Bulk Up's really cool in the fact that it boosts my defenses, helps me take on bullet punches from Lucario. Same kind of thing, obviously. I don't want to get swept by that thing. So getting a Bulk Up there is really nice. And that extra attack raise from Swords Dance didn't really make a huge difference. I think Bulk Up is actually more viable. And again, Shadow Sneak, Shadow Claw, both really good priority. The cool thing about Mimikyu is his defensive core is, Bronzong, Umbreon primarily. Maybe throw a defensive Ampharos in there, but Mimikyu actually rips those two to pieces. So I really, really like that. I just have to make sure I use my Z move at the right time. I think that's going to be kind of key, is really finding the right time to use that Z move and keeping Mimikyu to mid-late game. I don't know if it's necessarily early game, because I want to kind of scout out his team a little bit first and make sure I make the right plays, but I think Mimikyu could be really good in this match. So kind of summarizing, I left a few things out this week. Obviously I didn't bring Como-O. I kind of explained why. Celebi didn't really have a good matchup. It struggled against a lot of his team, in my opinion. Cresselia I think had some viability, but with things like Scolipede and Blacephalon, it really made for Cresselia pretty tough. I'm curious whether he does go Lucario with me potentially having Cresselia. Like Cresselia could have walled a lot of his team too, so there's that. And then Torkoal, Lantern, I didn't really feel like they were that viable this week. I actually did think Lantern was okay. I'm not gonna lie, Lantern wasn't the worst idea. Like an Assault Vest Lantern would have been solid against things like Ampharos and against Blacephalon and even the Tapu Fini. That like wasn't a terrible idea, but like a Volt Absorbing set. But nevertheless, I went with what I went with. So that's the team. Again, it's really, I think the key to this game is if he brings Blacephalon, Pursuit Trap that with Houndoom. That doesn't seem like he can really avoid that unless he makes some really good double switches. And then Ampharos. Got to get rid of that Ampharos, man. And I think Sticky Webs is going to help with that. If I can get my webs up, that's going to really, really slow down his team, allow things like Nidoking to be more effective, and hopefully we can keep those hazards on the field. So that's that, guys. That's our team builder. Hope you're excited for the match tomorrow. Show some love with that like button down below, and I'll catch you guys next time. That's going to be it for me, guys. My name is Dan. I also go by aDrive. Peace. Thanks so much for checking out my last video. If you like that one, you'll definitely like this one. And be sure to subscribe for more as I post Pokemon videos every single day.